Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the June 18th MLB DraftKings lineup card. I need to apologize for the audio audio quality or lack thereof yesterday. I needed to update my PC. Went to Windows 11, and when I restart my PC, all the settings get reset to default, especially switching to Windows 11. So did not realize that or forgot about it. So apologies for the audio issues yesterday. Hopefully they're fixed. Let me know in chat if you are watching. But welcome. I hope you all had a lot better evening than I did last night. For one thing that I got right, it seemed like I got two things wrong. A couple of good calls and some really, really bad ones. So we're going to try to fix that. Fix that today. There are only 5 games on the slate, so not a lot to cover, especially with 2 of them being interleague matchups where there's just not a lot of plate appearances from batter versus pitcher standpoint. And then one lineup is already out. It is in Boston, so we'll see if there are any lineups or more lineups out by the time we get through the 5 games. So let's get into it. All statistics provided today and every day are from baseballreference.com. It is the best tool out there for anything baseball statistic related. It has ballpark statistics, umpire stats, player comparisons, anything you need for diving into baseball analytics. So if you want to be a part of that, make sure you go check out Baseball Reference. It is well worth your investment. In the descriptions to the videos, there are links to my social media. This is where I place my betting cards for the golf content I create, as well as any interesting research I find throughout the week for golf and baseball. So if you want to see some of that research, make sure you give me a follow at the links in the descriptions. And then finally, we're live. Chat is open. Want to hear from you all. Like I said, how was your Friday night, June 17th slate for baseball? What do you think of today? Do you see the same thing I do in that pitching is normally pretty strong, and today it's very, very bare with only 10 pitchers available and double headers and whatnot. So we're going to try to extract whatever value we can. There are quite a few mandatory plays, I think. So I'm going to have about 3 or 4 locks so we can see if I get any of those correct. So let's get into the June 18th DraftKings slate. And we start in Boston, where the Cardinals continue the series with the Red Sox. One of the games that I got pretty wrong last night, I was higher on Adam Wainwright than I was on Michael Wacha. Neither pitcher pitched all that well, but the only part of this game that I got correct was Nolan Arenado. The Cardinals offense was okay. Arenado being my lock since Bo Bichette didn't play. He had a decent enough game to warrant the price, but Wacha pitched well enough, and I did take a little bit of Wainwright. He did not pitch well at all. So overall, a game that I didn't get much right. And then today, the wind is blowing straight across from essentially the monster to Pesky's pole, left to right. So probably not a whole lot of home runs, but a whole lot of extra base hits with that very unique feature of right center field's triangle. And if somebody pulls it down the line, I mean exactly down the line in right, maybe. But so with this game, you have Dakota Hudson, who has pitched fairly well, 4-3, 3.29 ERA. Now he is only averaging 11.5 points per start because he only has about a half a strikeout per inning. So there is not a lot of upside there. So you're really banking on him throwing a lot of innings and getting a lot of quality out of those innings. And against a pretty strong Boston lineup, that's going to be a lot to ask today. With that said, I think Dakota Hudson might be usable. That's how shallow I believe the pitching market to be today. But let's cover the Cardinals lineup first versus Cutter Crawford. Crawford is a second-year player. He has made one start in his major league career. It was his last time out. You see the ERA there at 5.74. That's quite deceiving. He got hit hard in April and has gotten better and better throughout the year, including, as I mentioned, his last start, which was in Seattle last weekend. Crawford went 5 innings, gave up 1 hit, no runs. He did have 4 walks, but also 7 strikeouts. Now, the Cardinals lineup is much, much better than Seattle's, so this is quite a different test. But Cutter Crawford has been pitching better as of late. And he has 21 strikeouts in 15 2/3 innings. Again, he was mainly in relief in the beginning part of the season. He had a couple of really bad outings, but has really pitched well as of late. Cutter Crawford in that start, as I mentioned, pretty darn good. He does have 12 walks in 15 2/3 innings, so you are worried about that. P, how you doing? Hopefully you had more success than I did last night with baseball. As I was mentioning in the intro, for every one thing I got right, it seemed like I got 2 wrong. So hopefully you followed my advice when it was good and avoided it 2/3 of the time, essentially. But thanks for jumping in, chat. Hopefully your Saturday is going well. See if we can't correct our mistakes from yesterday, or my mistakes. But as I had a good MLB night. PGA is so bad. Hey, at least you're 1 for 2. I was kind of the opposite. My PGA is going pretty darn well. I can't really complain. Do you see the same thing I do with a very shallow pitching market? But again, coming back to Cutter Crawford against the Cardinals, of course, no experience here, pitcher versus hitters. So what I do know on Cutter Crawford, I looked at his platoon splits, and he has some pretty severe reverse platoon splits, him throwing right-handed. He has really, really struggled against righties, and he has been really bad at Fenway Park. Again, that one start coming in Seattle, he has not pitched well in Fenway. That's why I'm pretty high on the Cardinals offense again today. We'll start with Juan Yepez. First base and outfield eligibility. Yepez still hitting 270. He's got 11 extra base hits in honestly, half of the plate appearances that most of his teammates do. The power is still there. He is still a bit free swinging. He doesn't have a whole ton of walks, so you're banking on quite a bit of extra base hit power here, which he clearly has. At 3,600, don't hate it, especially considering Cutter Crawford having the reverse platoon splits he does. And then Tommy Edman and Nolan Arenado. Edman leading off for this loaded Cardinals team, hitting 282, 15 stolen bases, 19 extra base hits. You're going to pay for it at 5,100. He's well worth it, especially at second and short, where there are even less plays than usual. So you're going to have to find some value somewhere. And Tommy Edman hitting at the top of the lineup provides that, certainly. Then Nolan Arenado, the one thing I did get right about this game, had a pretty good showing. And then, hitting 276, 14 doubles, 12 homers. A lot to like here. At third base position that I really do think has quite a few options, this being the premium play. So if you have the 4,900 for Nolan Arenado, highly suggest using him, but he is not the only option there. So, and then for the Red Sox hitters against Dakota Hudson, there is only one player who has any plate appearances against Dakota Hudson. It is Trevor Story from his time in Colorado. It did not go well for Story. He was only 1 for 6 with a walk against Dakota Hudson. And with the wind blowing left to right, essentially, not really high on Trevor Story. There is another second baseman later on that is going to be my lock essentially for the day. So anybody that I have mentioned for Boston is just due to the year that they're having. I have Xander Bogaerts. Shortstop is generally pretty shallow anyway, so at 5,200, if you have it, great. I think I would much rather have Tommy Edman, but Xander is a fine enough play if you want to stack Red Sox. And then JD Martinez having a fantastic season, as per usual, 23 doubles. The homers are starting to come around. He's got 8. I believe he's gotten 4 in the past week and a half or 2 weeks or so. JD Martinez hitting 344, on base 42% of the time or close to it. 5,800, you're going to pay for it. Probably well worth it. The one player I did not list is Rafael Devers, and that is solely because I think there are a few options at third base. But if you want to use a stack of Red Sox, you would certainly want to think about Rafael Devers, but it's going to get very expensive very quickly. And that lineup, Boston's lineup is out. We'll cover that after we get through all 5 games. So here's a look at the game in Fenway. Dakota Hudson's intriguing only because when pitchers face hitters for the first time, the pitcher usually has the advantage. And then I do think the Cardinals' offense is going to score some runs to give Dakota Hudson a chance at the win and those 4 points. We move to game 2, which is Cleveland in Los Angeles to take on the Dodgers. This is an afternoon game for them, but fits into the 7 o'clock window here on the East Coast. You have Cal Quantrill against Julio Urias, and these are the 2 highest priced pitchers on the board today, and I don't want really any part of them. We'll start with Julio Urias against the Cleveland Guardians. Urias 3-6, but he's pitched well to a 2.8 ERA, but 56 strikeouts and 64 in the third innings. He's not pitching the way I would think he should, and this is just from a baseball person's eye. Something doesn't seem right with Urias. His off-speed stuff seems out of sorts, and the very limited numbers that the Guardians have are fairly decent against him. So we'll start with Jose Ramirez. What's there to say? 301, hit 40 extra base hits. I think he's finally been surpassed in the RBI lead by Pete Alonso, but still 62 RBIs, 20 doubles, 16 homers, 11 steals, also tied for the lead on this team. He is the highest priced third baseman. I like Arenado in terms of a Cardinals stack, but Jose Ramirez is always usable in a solo standalone value, or if you want to attack Julio Urias. And then I'm highlighting Ahmed Rosario again, 1-for-1 with a homer, I believe. Yeah, 1-for-1 with a homer and a walk. So a little bit of success here from his time with the Mets. And Rosario hitting 270, 7 steals, a little bit light in the power department, but again, he has been moved up to second in the batting order. So there are a lot more plate appearances here. Right-handed hitting Rosario against the lefty throwing Urias. I do like that matchup, especially for a shortstop position that normally is bare and you've got a lot more or a lot less options. I was going to say a lot more scarce today. And then for Quantrill against the Dodgers, Quantrill started his career in San Diego, so there is a little bit of plate appearance or experience here, pitcher versus hitter. So we'll start with Will Smith, 1-for-5 with a double. Not great numbers, but again, with catcher being so shallow like it normally is, Will Smith is one of the few catchers that has experience and positive experience against the opposing pitcher. Freddie Freeman, 2-for-6 with a double. And the year Freddie Freeman's having is quite stellar. Not quite the home run power that you would expect, but certainly the batting average, the doubles, He's even got 6 steals, which he never was known for stealing bases in Atlanta, so he's providing value in that way. And then finally, the third base play that I really like today is Justin Turner. Turner 3 for 5 with a homer in his career against Kyle Quantrill. And Turner's starting to pick it up a little bit, although his full season line is still lagging behind. He's only hitting 205, but like I said, he is starting to pick it up a little bit. Second on this team, on this Dodgers team in doubles, only 4 homers, but he's still drawing his walks on base close to 30% of the time. I really do like Justin Turner today at third base. Another option could be Cody Bellinger with the wind blowing out to right center. His homer yesterday, maybe he's getting on track. He's 1 for 6 with a double against Cal Quantrill. I just didn't list him as there are a few outfield options available. So yeah, I don't want really either part of the pitchers in this game, and I imagine Urias might be fairly chalky, so I'm going to be quite unique, I think. Going to take a big chance in the pitching market, but I think I'm going to be pretty unique and try to spend up on, say, a Jose Ramirez or a Cardinal stack, a Red Sox stack, if you will. Really like those plays or those types of plays today. So that's the look at Dodger Stadium. We come to Colorado in a game that I am now officially 0 for 3, as I was trying to pick on Kyle Freeland. He pitched again fairly well. Still gave up 3 runs in 5 2/3, I think, maybe 6 innings. So we're going to call it a hat trick. Kyle Freeland is officially my nemesis in baseball. But I was correct in the sense that I was nowhere near Mackenzie Gore. The Rockies exploded for 13 runs. And this is a game, again, that I see a whole lot of runs being produced. So let's start with German Marquez. I try to pick on him as well, especially at Coors Field, where his ERA is more than 1 run higher than on the road. You would expect that. His career ERA in Coors Field is close to 5, just not good there. And he's had a really poor season. 3-5 ERA, well over 6, 59 strikeouts in 68 innings, so he is still getting some strikeout value. The problem today that I have with this pitching matchup in particular, as this was a doubleheader last weekend, the same exact matchup that we had last night, Mackenzie Gore and Kyle Freeland, that was game 2 of a doubleheader last Saturday. German Marquez pitched on Sunday, the 12th. Hey, Darnell, how you doing? Thanks for jumping in on the baseball stream. Appreciate it. How is your weekend going? Hopefully your Saturday is going well. I normally see you in the PGA content, so how's your U.S. Open going? But thanks for jumping in on the baseball stream. Really appreciate it. But as I was saying, the doubleheader last week in San Diego, Mackenzie Gore and Kyle Freeland, was completely wrong. Good. Mine is going pretty darn well. I can't complain. There's a lot of potential for some bank account flexibility, is how I'll say it. It kind of depends on how some of these leaders go today. But Marquez pitched on that Sunday against San Diego last week, and he pitched really well. 7 innings, 6 hits, 2 earned, no walks, 6 strikeouts. So that's a very, very good showing. And he's had good success against the Padres in his career. He's 9-3 against the Padres in his career. So you've got a lot of conflicting evidence here against Marquez today. He's terrible at home, but he's been good against the Padres. His last outing was against the Padres. It was very good. But the numbers some of these hitters have against him are good. So, again, I just don't know how to feel about this. I'm generally leaning on the Padres side of things today. So let's cover some of these hitters' numbers against Marquez. We're going to start with Jorge Alfaro. Alfaro, 3 for 8 with 2 doubles in his career against German Marquez. especially at 3,200. I really like Alfaro. I think he's probably my favorite catching play today if he is in the lineup. I'm not going to call him a lock, but I really do like that play. Eric Hosmer, I seem to mention him every time, but at 2,700, his numbers against German Marquez, he is 9 for 29, so hitting 310 with a double and a homer. Again, his value is getting boosted by the Coors Field effect. He is not, Hosmer has never been one to depend on power, and even though Coors Field produces a lot of home runs, it is the biggest ballpark in baseball, so there are plenty of room for doubles and triples, so Hosmer has the chance to pick up points in that regard. But my lock today is Jake Cronenworth, second baseman for the Padres, 5,400. That's why I am pretty low on the upper tier of the price board pitchers. I'm trying to squeeze in a Jake Cronenworth, an Arenado, a Jose Ramirez. Jake Cronenworth is my lock today at second base, which is normally very, very bare. Cronenworth's numbers against Marquez in his career: 4 for 14, a triple and 2 homers. He's averaging 2.2 points per plate appearance. Cronenworth's the new Mike Trout. I don't know if I'd go that far. Mike Trout's one of the historically best baseball players. But Cronenworth is on a tear. He's generally leading off for this Padres team. If it's not Jurickson Profar, who we'll talk about here in a minute, it's Cronenworth. But Cronenworth has picked up as well. He's hitting 251, 16 doubles, 6 homers. He's averaging 1.75 points per plate appearance on the season. And then the aforementioned 2.2 against Marquez in his career. Cronenworth is my lock at a second base position that is normally very scarce, but is my favorite play today. And then Jurickson Profar, he has been leading off more consistently. So if he's leading off, I like the $4,400 price tag a lot more than I normally would. But Profar's numbers against German Marquez are pretty good. Profar, 3 for 9, all singles. So a little bit capped there. But again, it's the plate appearances that you expect to get in a game that I think is going to be very high scoring, which gives you a little bit of a sneak peek on how I feel about Nick Martinez. But Profar is hitting 250, 16 doubles, 8 homers, even has 4 steals. So Profar having a decent season as well. So a lot to like here with the Padres. Cronenworth, I think, is going to be a standout play today, whether you want to stack Padres or use Cronenworth in a standalone situation. If Jorge Alfaro is catching, that is a mini stack that I can see myself using a lot today, Alfaro and Cronenworth. And now let's talk about the Rockies side facing Nick Martinez. Nick Martinez threw in the first game of the doubleheader that we had last week. Nick Martinez in that game did not pitch all that well. 5 2/3, 5 hits, 1 run. It was earned, 3 walks and 9 Ks. But he has some severe reverse platoon splits as well. Nick Martinez, the right-handed pitcher, really struggles against right-handed hitters. And what do the Rockies have? A lot of power-hitting right-handed hitters. So first, I'm going to mention Brian Serven. Even though Serven was only 0 for 1 with a walk against Martinez last week, Serven's hitting 333 as a catcher. That is very, very rare. 3 homers. He is not even the highest priced catcher on the board. So I like Brian Serven. He is splitting time with Elias Diaz. I do not like Diaz today, but if Serven is catching, I really like Serven. But the big play for the Rockies, probably my best play at first base, if you have the money, CJ Cron, 4,700. His numbers against Nick Martinez are ridiculously good. 7 for 20, so hitting 350, 2 doubles, 2 homers. And Cron's season, he had a huge night last night. He's hitting 291, 16 homers. I love CJ Cron today. I was close to making him the lock, and then I decided to use Cronenworth, but I can see myself attacking this game full on offense today. And then a couple of other kind of speculative choices, really. Connor Joe and Jonathan Daza. Connor Joe was 1 for 3 against Nick Martinez last weekend, but Connor Joe generally leading off for the Rockies, again in a game that I expect to be very high scoring. Connor Joe hitting 270 has really slowed down. He really started off the season very hot, has slowed down, but still hitting 270, still getting on base 36% of the time. Very, very strong. Slugging 400. You like that, especially in the leadoff position. And then Jonathan Daza was 1 for 2 with a walk last week, and I highlight him here a lot. Only 3,000. He's still hitting 331. Not a lot of extra base hits. He still does not have a homer. He only has 7 doubles. It's the fact that he has been recently moved up to the 2-hole in this Rockies lineup, and the price savings. So all of those factors for Jonathan Daza I really like as well. Nick Martinez's reverse platoon splits, the fact that he's been moved up in the order. There's a lot to like with Jonathan Daza. So this game is a game, as I said, I'm going to be attacking full on with offense. So I want neither part of the pitchers in this one. So that's 3 games, and really only 1 pitcher I've even started to consider. So we've got a lot of pitching to try to find in 2 games. So any pitching that I'm going to take tonight is very speculative. But that's a look at the game in Colorado. Let's move to game 4. It is the Angels and the Mariners in Seattle. This is also a doubleheader today. So the first game, I believe, has started by now. Maybe it's close to being started. The pitching matchup there is Chris Flexen, and I am forgetting the Angels side. I know Chris Flexen's throwing for Seattle. So they have a kind of a, not necessarily a bullpen game, but kind of 6th, 7th starters coming in today. So let's cover that matchup. It's Jose Suarez, who makes the occasional spot start for the Angels, kind of a long reliever, against Justice Sheffield, one of the formerly premier prospects in baseball. He actually started in relief at the beginning of the season for Seattle. He has been in AAA. They have lengthened him out. So you see the prices here on these pitchers. Let's cover Justice Sheffield first. Again, worked mainly in relief. Only 4 2/3 innings, but he has not given up a run. He only has 2 walks in those 5 innings. The numbers against Justice Sheffield, very limited plate appearances, I understand, but the numbers against him are not good on the Angels side. But because this is a doubleheader, I have listed the players that are not in the lineup for the first game. So you can be sure that Max Stassi is going to catch tonight's game. Kurt Suzuki is catching the first game, so you're not going to get a catcher catching both ends of a doubleheader. So Max Stassi is going to catch. Jack Mayfield, Andrew Velasquez, and Juan Lagares are also on the bench, so I imagine they're going to be in the lineup in some form or fashion. So that's why it's very difficult to recommend players in a doubleheader. You just don't know who's going to play both games of a doubleheader. But for the Angels against Justice Sheffield, I actually don't mind Max Stassi too much. He is 1 for 5, a couple of walks. That's really the only player that has any kind of success against Justice Sheffield. The lineup for the Angels in this first game: Taylor Ward, Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, who is DHing per usual, Jared Walsh, Matt Duffy, Brandon Marsh, Kurt Suzuki, Tyler Wade, and Luis Rengifo. I don't know how to pronounce that, but that's the lineup for the Angels. Stassi has the aforementioned 1 for 5 with 2 walks. Shohei Ohtani is 0 for 10 in his career against Justice Sheffield. Taylor Ward is 1 for 4, but 3 strikeouts. You got Jared Walsh, 2 for 7. Mike Trout is 1 for 6 with a double. So not a whole lot here. This is the pitcher that I'm going to use quite a bit today to try and get all of these high dollar hitters in my lineup. It is quite speculative, I get it. It's a big risk, but one that I really think could pay off tonight in Seattle, which is not known as a hitter's ballpark anyway. But those are the players that are not playing in the first game for the Angels. Now, for the Mariners against Jose Suarez, who has been guaranteed or has been announced as the second game starter for the Angels. Something that I should have mentioned, Justice Sheffield is not the guaranteed starter. That is what DraftKings is listed, but MLB.com has not listed a starter. There's no official announcement yet. So hopefully it is Justice Sheffield, because I've been building my lineups around him. But you will have to make sure of that. Fortunately, it is in the West Coast night slate, so you have until about 9:30 Eastern time to make sure that Sheffield is pitching. But for the Mariners hitters, you see here Cal Raleigh is going to catch the second game. Luis Torrens is catching the first, and then Adam Frazier and Jesse Winker are also on the bench for the first game. So the Mariners lineup: Julio Rodriguez, Ty France, J.P. Crawford, Eugenio Suarez, Luis Torrens. Justin Upton is DHing. He made his season debut for the Mariners last night. And then Dylan Moore, Abraham Toro, and Taylor Trammell is the Seattle lineup today. I really like J.P. Crawford in this second game. His numbers against Suarez: 5 for 13 with 2 doubles, a couple of walks. J.P. Crawford hitting .290, getting on base 38% of the time. He's my favorite shortstop play today. Again, not a lock, because I don't know if he's going to play both games of the doubleheader, but I do like J.P. Crawford if he's in the lineup. And then some potential price savings is Dylan Moore, shortstop and outfield eligibility. Dylan Moore, 2 for 10 with a double against Suarez in his career. Now, Dylan Moore's had a pretty poor showing offensively so far this season, only hitting .200. It is the fact that he can get on base. He's getting on base 35% of the time for only hitting .200, and he has 8 steals. So he's providing his value in different ways. In the batting average, yes, he has to get on base to have a chance to get you those points, but there is some potential there. And at I believe it's 2,200 could provide a lot of value for you. So if J.P. Crawford and Dylan Moore are playing in both games, essentially, if they're in the night game, I really like both of those plays. And then on the Angels side, I mean, Mike Trout, if he plays both games. I do like Max Stassi as a potential catcher to use. There are a couple of other catchers with decent numbers as well. So no guarantee there. Like I said, I'm pretty all in on Justice Sheffield. Don't feel great about it, but it's the fact that he's the lowest priced pitcher on the board today, and how I see some of these locks in the upper prices of their positions on offense. So that's a look at the game in Seattle. To finish off the nightly slate is another interdivisional matchup, or interleague matchup, I should say. So not a lot of experience here between pitcher and hitter. It's Minnesota at Arizona, a game I got completely wrong yesterday. I was really high on Devin Smeltzer. He got lit up. I thought the Twins might score some runs against Madison Bumgarner. He pitched really darn well, so this was a full-on mistake on my end. So I'm going to try to correct that today. You've got Dylan Bundy against Luke Weaver. Dylan Bundy against these Arizona hitters. Not a whole lot of experience. Bundy has spent almost his entire career in the American League. First with Baltimore, then with the Angels, now with the Twins. So the limited plate appearances that these Arizona hitters have, decent decent success, and you see the year that Bundy has been having, not great. He's averaging less than 9 points per start. So the first person I've highlighted here, Ketel Marte, 2 for 5 with a double. He's hitting 270, getting on base 35% of the time, 23 doubles. Doesn't have the power output, the home run output that he's had the past couple of years, but still getting on base, still having extra base hit power, just not the homers. And then David Peralta, 2 for 2, a couple of singles, hitting 240, so not great, but some success against Dylan Bundy, and Bundy having a pretty poor year. I don't mind David Peralta. Let's see. And then for the Twins against Luke Weaver. Weaver has pitched exclusively in relief this season so far. He's only got 3 2/3 innings, but it was a starter last year. So even though it's probably a bullpen game for Arizona, Weaver does have starting experience as recently as last season. That I would not be surprised if he could throw 5 to 6 innings. And any suggestion I have as far as Twins is purely on baseball of left-handed hitters versus the right-handed throwing Luke Weaver. So first I'm going to list Luis Arias, first base and second base eligibility today. Again, no plate appearances against Luke Weaver, but Arias is hitting 357. Still a pretty empty 357, but 6 doubles, 3 homers. He's getting on base 44% of the time. So I really like Luis Arias today at first. As I mentioned, I have Jake Cronenworth as my lock at second. But at first base, if you don't want to spend up on a CJ Cron or Paul Goldschmidt, I like Cron a whole lot. But if you think you want to attack Luke Weaver, I really do like Luis Arias. And then Max Kepler in the outfield, power hitting left-handed hitter against the righty throwing Luke Weaver. Kepler generally hits righties well. Kepler hitting 245, 9 doubles, 6 homers. This Twins offense hasn't been producing a whole lot lately, so it's, again, pure speculation on my part. So I think another area that I'm going to today is Luke Weaver. So you see Luke Weaver, Justice Sheffield, I might only get 3 innings out of each starter, but I'm going to take the chance that I get more. As I said, I'm just down on Julio Urias. I'm down on Cal Quantrill. I might dip into Dakota Hudson, maybe even a Cutter Crawford. I don't know yet. The pitching market to me is pretty darn bare today. I don't want any part of German Marquez. Don't want any part of Nick Martinez. So I'm going to be scrambling for some pitching today. But that is a look at the 5 games. I'm going to bring you back to the intro. Let's see how many lineups are out. I know Boston's was out when I went live. Let's see if we have any other lineups out. So far, I just see Boston. So let's take you back to Fenway very quickly. For Boston, you have Devers, Martinez, and Bogarts all hitting in their usual 2, 3, 4 spot. Trevor Story's hitting 5th if you want to go there, although his numbers against Dakota Hudson are not great. Christian Vasquez, who I did originally have listed here, is getting the day off, so it's Kevin Plawecki. I don't want any part of Plawecki. Bobby Dahlback, Jackie Bradley, if you want to take and use a full-on Red Sox stack, take a look at Jarren Duran, leadoff hitter now for the Red Sox. That Kike Hernandez is on the IL. Jarren Duran, 3,100. He's been having a decent season, or a decent start to his season. Bring up the Red Sox here. That game, Duran hitting 318. Only 1 double though, so it's quite empty, but 7 for 22. So take a look at Jarren Duran if you want to use a Red Sox stack, especially since if you're going to be using a Red Sox stack, I highly suggest the Xander Bogaerts, a Rafael Devers, and or a JD Martinez. So Duran would have to be your price savings stack as a part of that. The Cardinals lineup is not out yet. The Guardians and Dodgers is not out yet. and the rest of the games are on the night games on the West Coast, so none of those lineups are out. So only one lineup to cover today. That is Boston's against Dakota Hudson. So I'll bring you back to the intro. Again, a pretty short show with only 5 games and 2 interleague matchups, so not a lot of plate appearances and data we can go into. So in the comments of the show, let me know how you do. Who were some of the pitchers that you used? Did you see a shallow market like I did? Were you higher on Julio Urias? Did you use him? I imagine he'll be pretty chalky. So let me know how it goes. P, you mentioned that you had a pretty good night last night. If I recall, you had been struggling in the MLB. If you could get some pitching, you'd have been okay. So apparently you got that. Hopefully you used Carlos Rodon last night. He had a very good game. Jordan Montgomery was somebody I was boldly using last night. It worked out. He had a good game against Toronto. So hopefully your success in MLB continues. Thanks for jumping in chat. Darnell, thanks for jumping in chat for baseball and tuning in. I generally see you in the golf shows, but thanks for tuning in for baseball. Really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who tuned in, watched, and listened. I always appreciate the support for all of your contests for June 18th in the MLB DraftKings slate. May all your bets be profitable.